Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order now. The first item of business is the approval of the agenda. Before we approve it, are there any additions that people would like to put on the agenda? Chris?
I would like to put on, I guess it'd be item 5 under priority issues, ramp at the Rideau Hotel. Okay. I got some pictures from Lucy Bingley that I'd like to share and just have an informal discussion on that if everybody's comfortable adding it on the fly.
Mm-hmm. Chris, what was the first word? Ramp?
A ramp at the Hotel Rideau. Anyone else want to add anything? Well, I'd like to add item 6 then, just a review of our MHC meeting format. Okay. Anything else? Hearing nothing, would someone then move that we adopt the agenda? Lorraine, and a seconder, Chris, all in favor? Thank you. Next thing is the minutes then from our last meeting on August 19th. Assuming everybody's had a chance to go over them. Are there any errors or omissions to the minutes?
Yes, there's one item that I spotted. There was a mention of painting the brick, and I wondered if that made sense.
Chris?
Yeah, I think that, I'm just trying to find it here in the document, but I think was that a reference to the Rideau Hotel?
Yes.
Ted?
Yeah.
And if my memory serves me, I think what he was saying is that they can't find a brick style that matches the existing style, but they could paint a brick with a similar texture to fill in where they've got to replace, I think, 3 windows on the Beckwith Street facade. And that would be the closest way to match it because the time it would take to get a replica brick would be over a year and it wasn't feasible for them.
Okay. So, I mean, the paint's going to flake off the brick, but.
Well, Ted, it sounded to me, and Chris, maybe, am I wrong in this? It sounded more like it was a stain that would go into the brick and the brick would change its color. It wasn't like paint that would chip off. Is that what you thought, Chris? Just by the way he described it, it didn't sound like it was going to be paint.
Yeah, to me, it was part of the manufacturing process of the brick and not something that would just be rolled on later. But that could have been based on another conversation I had with them, maybe outside of the meeting. No, but definitely planning on rolling paint on after they've done it, I wouldn't go for that.
That's my recollection, Chris. He talked about coloring the brick, not painting it.
Yeah.
I think it sounded as if it was going to be right in the brick.
Right.
But we could ask for clarification, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that makes sense. That's what I understood. So when I read painting the brick, I just was wondering.
Yeah,
So can we amend the minutes to say coloring the brick then, or?
Can I suggest that we clarify that with Ken before we amend the minutes? Because I believe that the term he used at one point or another was painting. And I'm only saying because I conducted these minutes from the video, from the recording. So I just want to double check with Ken. So if the committee's comfortable, I can clarify that point before we amend it. And we can just defer the adoption of the minutes till the next meeting.
Okay, that's a good idea. Then we're on to disclosure of monetary interest. Anyone? As I scan the crowd, no? And priority issues. First and most important, I would like to welcome Katie Hoffman to our committee. Thank you for joining, Katie.
Thank you very much for having me.
I don't think I've met you before, have I? Do you?
I think maybe years ago. I don't know. Your name is very familiar. So maybe we haven't met and I just have heard all the amazing things about you.
Well, thank you. That would be great. Okay, item 2 is the CIP Evaluation Committee. I guess we are to have a representative from our committee on that committee. So who is speaking to this?
Could maybe Chris is our rep from the council on that committee, and perhaps it would help Jenny and others and Ted and Katie to know what actually that committee does. Maybe they don't understand. Could you tell them just in a
I
real
don't.
quick way?
Yeah, so this was something that came up. We're going through a review of the CIP program right now, and so I was reading over the terms of reference, and I noticed that there's a designated MHC representative on the committee, but we don't have that filled right now. I think it used to be filled by Becky, but then when she left the MHC, now she's there representing economic development. The CIP program gets a $50,000 budget every year from council, and then they use that money to create matching fund grants for businesses in the community to improve their facades, renovate vacant spaces. There's a section for environmental rehabilitation for contaminated sites, and then there's a tax abatement program. So the idea is the CIP program's roughly Elmsley Street to Maple Avenue to the Rideau Canal in that downtown core district. So it was a product of the downtown revitalization plan. And the MHC rep is really important for this committee because many of the buildings that are being renovated are heritage buildings. And it's really important to have somebody on that committee that can really make sure things are being renovated properly and done to, heritage features are being maintained and done in a way that's sympathetic to the original architecture of the building. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer. That's kind of my off-the-cuff explanation.
What does CIP stand for?
Community Improvement Plan. Good
Community
question.
Improvement Plan. Thank you.
And if you know Elizabeth Interiors, Katie,
Yes?
I'm using that because I think it's one of our finest examples of the community improvement plan at its best. She had a grant that helped us recreate the facade on front of her property,
Okay.
the beautiful one that they're now repainting. That's the kind of thing it was to do. It was to just, revitalize old buildings and allow people to have a grant to help them.
That's great.
Davidson's Courtyard's another great example where
Yes.
it needed maintenance, but they really went above and beyond. They preserved the grain elevator or the flower elevator. They preserved some pulleys and just some stuff that really ties in the original use of the building with the current
Right.
use. So,
Okay.
Is there anyone who wishes to express interest right now, or shall we leave it that maybe you want to find out more from Chris, or anybody dying to start doing that? Mary is. Okay.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that I'm also, so Carl and I kind of tag team the CIP evaluation committee, but I kind of taken the position of being the primary staff resource on that committee. So if anybody has any questions, they can also reach out to me in regards to policy and what we do in regards to what policy we use for reviews and how applications are evaluated and so on and so forth.
And it's one meeting a month, Chris, am I right in that?
yeah, it
Generally,
got
usually.
one meeting a month. Sometimes if there's a pressing application, then we'll put an interim one in. But and then right now it's just been busy with the review, but that's all subcommittee stuff. So generally one meeting a month, and it's not. I'd say it'd be a similar commitment to this committee, maybe a little less depending on the season because it kind of goes with the renovation times. So.
Okay, thank you for the information, Chris. And we'll revisit that, I guess, if nobody volunteers in the near future. So we could move on to item 3. And can I turn this one to you, Mary, to address the report that we have from Carl?
Sure can. So this is just an ongoing conversation. So basically our senior planner and former MHC member went to a heritage planning for practitioners course last fall. And the idea of a heritage audit came up, which would essentially review our heritage procedures, policies, bylaws if need be. So what we're in the middle of developing right now is a framework for work to be conducted underneath a heritage audit so that we can begin a request for quotation process to see the cost of what would be accompanied for this work, as well as, you know, but whether or not we have the room in the budget or if we need to adjust the work. So what this is hopefully our last conversation before we start that process. Carl and I are bringing forward a proposed framework. So we have a single part approach and a one and two part approach. So this was discussed because the committee felt that the heritage designating bylaws, they were a priority, but they may not necessarily be reviewed by the same professional as the administration process and our policies would be. So we want to be prepared that we may not be able to retain one consultant to conduct all of this material. We may have to retain two separate consultants. So this is the preparation for that. So what was included was originally the committee had just seen an interest in rewriting our existing heritage designating bylaws. But at our last meeting, we also identified that review of the approval process, as well as some of our policies, more specifically the community improvement plan, should be reviewed in terms of heritage and respecting and rehabilitating and restoring heritage, just because it was the current policy undergoing review. So other policies we had discussed, such as the official plan, zoning bylaw, waterfront development master plan. However, it was felt by the committee members at that time that because the only policy undergoing review was the community improvement plan, that was a main priority. But those were the only items added. So basically what staff are asking for is just discussion, any comments you have on these proposed frameworks so that we can amend accordingly. And just if you decide that you want to do the two-part approach over a single part approach, or if we'll leave that up to what type of consultant we retain for the work. But yeah, just basically at this point, your comments on these so that we can get going with an RFQ.
Lorraine, go ahead.
Yeah, took me a few minutes to figure out, really, I'm still not sure I absolutely understand a single part over a double, but this is just my own personal opinion. What I felt we were looking at right now was having our designation bylaws updated, improved, because what's going to be happening, we've already discovered that with our town hall and police station and those buildings, they're very old. And as much as the way they are worded protects them or should protect them, I think identifying the features in them that we care most about needs to be added to that. And I think sooner rather than later. And that's why I think, Mary, we asked for this quite a while ago to be, to hire someone. And I think the longer we debate about what we're going to do, the more trouble we're going to get ourselves in with some of these. So it would be my choice to concentrate on having the bylaws, the ones that are, it's not unusual. The old bylaws often just sort of did a holistic desire and what they wanted to do in the building. But I think we know now from what we're going through in terms of, things that are getting changed, I think we have to be more itemized. Like we have to itemize the things that we feel are most beneficial to that building and that should be, protected. That's our role, I feel. And so I would rather have them, the people that we hire, whether I assume it's going to be one person, but I would like that expert to look at the older ones and as much as honoring what was said, add to it so that the features that aren't listed could be protected. And most of our new ones, we've done that. I think we've done a good job in most of the new ones. The other thing that Dorothy and I talked about, this is just sort of an addendum to this. We also talked about adding, getting, how many times we've talked about a number of properties we should be adding to this list. I know that Ted just did the history of his beautiful home. It should be added to waiting to be, looked at by us. So I think there are lots of things that, if we just concentrate on our designations, that would be a full-time package in my view.
Mhm. So what I think I'm hearing from you, Lorraine, really is the two-part approach. I think you're saying that the
I
priority
don't think
is.
so. Maybe Mary can clarify, but I thought the two-part approach was that perhaps we'd hire two different people to do two different things.
Not necessarily,
Is that
but maybe
not
we
correct?
would. Maybe we would, right? And the I certainly agree that rewriting the bylaws is a priority, but also when you look at the item 1.0 on the framework, 2.0 is rewriting the bylaws. 1.0 is providing a template for the bylaws going forward. And I assume that template would also be used to rewrite the old bylaws, as well as preparing an information publication to be distributed to property owners whose properties are candidates for designation. And I think both those things are really important and probably have to come before the bylaws are rewritten, but they kind of go together.
Well,
But
I agree with you that they're come together, but I don't think we have to have that done before we can do the bylaws, especially the ones that have been done in the past.
But would we
Because
not want?
they don't have owners. Half of the buildings don't have owners that we're going to be.
No, but would we not want to use the same template for new bylaws going forward and revising the old bylaws? Chris?
I guess Lorraine's frozen up on us.
Yeah.
I don't see an issue with using the same template. It's just as long as we distinguish that for the ones that are already designated, we're really just honing it in on the relevant features. So it's different kind of consultation than if it's not designated at all, and writing a bylaw and bringing all that on board versus just taking the existing bylaw from 1970 and forward to make it more specific to the heritage attributes, which in turn should make it easier for the property owner to renovate and know when to consult the committee and make our role easier too in providing feedback. And then that too could just go to the 1.5 in the part 1. Whose properties are candidates for designation, maybe also include whose properties are getting an updated designation or candidates for designation.
More comments? Mary?
I just wanted to clarify for Lorraine, the single part approach versus the two-part approach. So essentially, because the bylaws are so different than the other pieces, Carl had mentioned at the last meeting that there was a possibility that the same consultant may not undergo the review of the policies and the administration as well as the bylaws. So we were considering the possibility of having two different parts run concurrently. So we would be able to conduct approval process and how we approve alterations to heritage structures, as well as the policy review. At the same time, we have a separate, another consultant looking at the bylaws.
Yeah, but that's why I said I think we should start with the designation bylaws, because I think it's just more important. And looking at, we have no idea how much this will cost, right? We have, at least I don't have any idea how much this will cost. And we only have so many dollars to spend on it. So that was my thought. I think if we try to do too much, we first of all won't get it accomplished, and we won't be able to afford the person to do them all.
Yes?
Yeah, like I like the two-part for that reason, because if say it comes in and we can afford part 1, but we can't afford part 2, then we can accept the proposal for part 1 and go forward with it. But like we don't really, because we haven't done this before, we don't know where to expect it to come in. So maybe if it all comes in within our budget, then we could map it out and get both. But I definitely agree with you that part 1 to me is a big priority. I don't know how other people feel.
Jenny, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I definitely think the bylaws is the priority and what we should be focusing on, but I liked the two-part approach for that reason. And in case, if we get both and one is high, I think the bylaw should be the focus, but I think we might as well put out the request for both and see what they come in as.
So I think I'm hearing, excuse me, I think I'm hearing the committee is in favor of the two-part approach. Is that correct?
I
Sounds good to me.
Go ahead, Ted.
see the logic in that approach. It makes sense to me.
I agree.
Okay, so I think we've given the direction, Mary. Is that suitable?
So I just have a couple items of clarification. The committee would like me to do an RFQ process for both of these parts so that we can see the cost of both individual parts on their own. Yes. Further, I heard Lorraine say earlier that our more recent bylaws are done fairly nicely. So I just wanted to, it's labeled incorrectly as 3.16 and 3.17. These are the two bylaws that have been done since 2010. Do we want to include those in this review?
Well, I'm waiting to hear from everyone, but I would think you would include them all and hope that they will say, well, this one doesn't need my, obviously they're going to be an expert in doing this. So I think there's no harm in having them all included, and then they may tweak it or they may just leave it as is. That's my thought.
Chris?
Yeah, I like that idea, Lorraine. And I'm also wondering, like, I know we've got one in the hopper to get designated, and there's two that are very close if they're not already in the hopper. Would it be good to include those ones even though they're not designated, to get them all done in one swoop and have it,
Yeah.
like, would it be okay to add, reach out to the property owner if they're still keen and on board? We can tack them onto this RFP and get those ones moving forward faster too.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we haven't addressed the process of new designations yet, though. We haven't even notified any property owners, so I'm not sure if we should actually add them to a list. What do the rest of you think, Chris?
Just to clarify, I'm only talking about the ones that have contacted us, that
Yeah.
have reached out to get it,
Oh, okay.
where kind of all that politicking of it's over, and it's just they've been kind of waiting for us, and we haven't been writing their bylaw because we wanted to get this done. But maybe if their bylaw could get written by the consultant, there'd be some scale and savings that way. But I wouldn't suggest like new people or people that aren't that haven't already come to us. And if they're not still keen, then this idea wouldn't really go anywhere.
Any further comments? I think we need to decide whether that's going to happen or not.
Do you want to vote?
Somebody need a motion?
Do we want a motion on this, Mary?
If you don't mind, that would be great.
All right, let's have a motion then. Chris?
I
Okay.
agree. Adding, absolutely add those people in if they're waiting, and add them in, and later on work on an approach and explaining to people why it's going to help them to have their home designated as heritage, and that could come later.
Okay, so are we making a motion on the audit assessment framework? Or are we making a motion on including new properties to this list?
It can be included in the same motion. So what I'm hearing from the committee is that they want to pursue the two-part approach and that there is possible changes to part 1 to include those properties who have reached out to you to be designated.
Okay, that sounds good. Would somebody move that then, please?
And the ones in the past, like the old ones that have to be
The old
updated,
ones,
right?
yeah, they're already on the list. So
Yeah.
Jenny is making the motion. Would someone second it, please? Lorraine? All in favor? Thank you. Okay. So, next item of business is the letter for properties of interest. This is the letter that we had in draft form before the pandemic. The letter that we were going to send to property owners to inform them that there was an intention to designate their property, which is already on the Municipal Register of Properties of Interest. So the letter can't be used as it stands because the last part about having a public meeting is no longer possible. Do we want to deal with this right now, or should we wait and make it an integral part of this framework, that the heritage designation framework that we're asking a consultant to work on?
Wouldn't it be better to have the letter ready to show him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
The letter really is ready, except for a revision of the ending. So
Sure.
although we didn't actually formally approve the letter before, Mary reminded me that we talked about it. I'm pretty sure people said they thought it was fine, but then we decided to look at it again at a later date. So that's now, I suppose.
Well, and like we could have a Zoom meeting, couldn't we, with the people? What would be the problem with that? Is there a problem with that, Mary?
I don't see a problem with it.
I just had one thing that I wanted to change. Maybe it's only me that feels this way, but the first paragraph, it talks about changes everywhere in town these days, and we welcome the progress this brings. At the same time, the members of the Smith Falls Municipal Heritage Committee are conscious of the need to protect the important heritage attributes of our town. And to me, attributes aren't properties. Maybe I'm misreading it or I'm misinterpreting it, but I would prefer to say heritage properties of our town. Other than that, I like the letter.
Further comments? Katie, would you like to weigh in?
Well, I was just going to look up the meaning of attributes,
No.
but
Chris?
Is attributes, is that a word in the OHA or in the designating material, I wonder?
No, it's just a word I put there. I didn't find it in any document, I don't think.
I thought it was the word they used in the book, maybe like to designate specific, like a specific architectural feature would be a heritage attribute, but maybe I'm
Yes,
confused.
with respect to individual properties, I suppose.
But Lorraine's right, because we designate properties, we don't designate
Mhm,
structures.
mhm.
So I don't know.
well, properties,
Go ahead.
properties is a good word.
Okay, let's change it to properties then. I don't have it in front of me here anymore, but at the end, it does say, I think that any questions or concerns can be directed to Carl at the town hall.
That's right.
Should we leave? Chris, go ahead.
Sorry, Dorothy, just before that part, I was wondering, like the paragraph, this year we plan to take the next step in the heritage preservation process. I'm wondering maybe if the first step with the people would be, would you like to learn more about what designation means? Would you like to learn more about your property? Make it really about learning instead of, just in case somebody reads it the wrong way and it sounds like this is a train that's out of the station and we're going to designate their property and we're just looking for their consultation. I don't know. I kind of like how forward it is, but I wonder if it's going to create some pushback. But
Well,
we
it
might have already
could.
had this discussion. I kind of forget the last time we talked about this.
Yes.
Well, Ted, you have a property that you've been working on and researching. If you received this letter, how would you feel? Is there a better way of sending a letter to you?
I would like it to make me feel a bit more comfortable. People don't know. They do not know what
Yeah.
it means, and they run in fear
Right.
because they're afraid their property value is going to go down, and
Yes,
they can't paint
yes.
the windows,
Yeah.
white. So I think it needs to be a little more positive and gentle, I guess.
So Chris's suggestion might just do that, right? It might just be inviting them to be,
Yeah.
have a
Absolutely.
conversation with us.
No, learning is, those are great words. And
Yeah.
I feel much better hearing that approach. I think the more people learn about it, the more they will realize it's a good idea.
Mhm.
And the biggest stumbling block is people's fear because they don't know.
Mhm.
Katie?
How many people are we talking about here? How many properties at the moment?
Off the top of my head, that we would like to designate or to see
Yes.
designated. That's a good question.
I was wondering why it couldn't be done by two members with a personal visit, like a meeting to their home. Then you can tell them everything.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea for the homes, especially because it just gives that personal touch.
Yeah.
And now the other side of it is some of them are downtown. Like there's certain blocks of downtown where you've got some of them are out of town property management companies or even in-town property management companies. But you could probably get 60 to 75% of them fired off with a couple visits,
Yeah. I mean, Lorraine and I could do that. Lorraine?
I'm
She's
having trouble
frozen
hearing
now.
people. I don't know if it's my
Mary.
hearing.
Sorry, Dorothy. I just wanted to say to you real quick, so everybody's aware, we
What
have
is
17 heritage properties of interest.
Okay.
And there was one that was added but hasn't been adopted by resolution by council. It's on Jesse Street, the Ward Burial Ground. We had talked about this in February of this year, so it's on there tentatively, but it hasn't been taken to council for a formal resolution yet.
I don't really want to go there.
I've been there, it's not that scary.
I think it would be helpful if we had the information pamphlet that can be given to these property owners and left with them. Now, we've talked about this a few years ago, but we haven't done it. We don't have the pamphlet. It can answer many of the questions that they may think of after the visitors have left. And I think we need that as part of our presentation to the owners. Chris?
Yeah.
Dorothy, I agree. And I think with what we're picking off with the consultants, RFQ, we've got a lot on our plate. And I'm wondering maybe, as you say, it's better to get all our existing ones in order and the low-hanging fruit that's like right on the edge of getting designated. And then when it's time to do this, we'll be that much more prepared. We'll have that much more information. We'll have all the consultants' products, and we'll really be able to go in there with a strong argument.
I think that's a great idea. So can we hang on to the letter for a little while then, with the revisions in mind that have already been suggested?
Okay.
I don't see anyone shaking their head, so I guess we can, okay, all right, thanks.
Yep, thumbs up.
Next item on the agenda is the ramp, or proposed or suggested ramp for the Hotel Rideau. Chris, would you like to address that?
Yes, please. Thanks, Dorothy. And sorry for the last minute nature of this one. The history to this is that we took the resolution from the last MHC meeting to council on 2 Mondays ago, or committee of the whole 2 Mondays ago, and then it went to council this past Monday. And during that, a member of our accessibility committee, Lucy Bingley, noted it, and I had the opportunity to visit the site with her on Saturday. So we were doing some counting of bricks to get some measurements to look at what's the grade of the size of a ramp you'd need for that front entrance, and how long of a run it needs. So I have some pictures to share on that. But the general thinking behind this is that the Rideau Hotel, like the post office, is one of those symbols that when it's really at its best, Smith Falls is at its best. And when we've got something as significant as the portico that is just going to transform the architecture of that Becker Street facade, as much as it's this really glorious moment in the history of the building where this is returned, it's also a bit of a symbol where the steps, 15% of Ontarians have a disability, and the steps make that front entrance inaccessible for a lot of them. So so there's two big design criteria for a ramp. The first is the minimum width has to be 3 feet or 900 millimeters, and then the slope has to be 1 in 12. So I'm going to try to share my screen here. I haven't done this in a while, so I don't know if it's going to work, but give me a second. All right, is that up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so this is a screenshot from the report that we looked at, well, that went to council or committee the whole 2 weeks ago. We looked at it before that at our September, or our, I guess, August meeting, and it showed the steps and the portico and the dimensions of it, and we gave the okay. What's happened here is in green, proposed footprint of a ramp's been drawn in. So there's two. Can you see my cursor on the screen as a pointer?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so the 3'6" measurement here, if you follow this line across, coincides with the edge of the top of the step. So we know that this flat area at the top is greater than 3 feet. So we've got our width there. The only thing is the column here sticks out 1 foot 4 inches. So there'd have to be a little bit of a draw out to keep the 3 foot width around the column. But overall, it seems really reasonable to keep the 3 foot width without significantly impacting the access from the other two sides. And with some Googling, there's also been some good precedent of the ramp and the stairs coming together at other sites that I can share if requested. So the idea of seeing this picture was that, hey, we've got something that's possible here. We just need to do a little bit more research and see, okay, how is it going to affect the heritage attributes? How is it going to affect the run? Because 1 in 12 is a pretty low slope. So if I can move to the next picture here. Is there any questions before I change away from this one?
Chris, when you were saying move it, I can't point on my side, but when you're saying about that, moving it out, would the ramp go up, would it butt up to it, or just be on the other side of it?
So it would butt up to the wall here on this side.
Uh-huh.
And
so
then it would come up.
What would be
right
on the
to
other
the
side? Is it mandatory that there's a railing of some kind on ramps, or can they be freestanding?
Will it be?
Yeah, so there'd have to be some sort of railing, and that would have to be, up to code, whatever the height would be. It's got to have railings on both sides, and the minimum width between the railings has to be 3 feet. So
and do we have In this picture, I don't think we do we? Or do we?
So
yeah,
I've got some more pictures that might help visualize it a little better.
Okay,
But if there's any pictures of just the footprint of it, now would be the time, and then I'll move on. The next one's a picture of the front of the building to help
Okay.
visualize it.
I just want to ask that inside wall of the ramp, is it flat or does it cut out the beam?
So it would
Like
cut
you're
around the
going
beam.
like that? It would cut around the beam. Okay, that'll be hard to make a handle for it, but anyway,
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, it's one of those trying to mesh the accessibility with the heritage. And
Yep,
maybe
yep.
the conclusion today, it's not feasible, but right now it would cut around in that to save the footprint of the column.
Chris, at the post office, did they put two on it or just one? Seems to me the ramp they created only has the one railing on the outer side. Am I wrong in that?
Yeah, and I've got a picture of that to share last, actually.
Okay,
I think that's the best example of a restored heritage facade with a railing that's new and modern, but it's really sympathetic and it fits in really well with the
yeah,
original design.
I agree. I like what they've done there.
Something like that is what I think would be reasonable here. So
Yeah.
with that, I'll move on to this one. This is a picture we got last Saturday. So I'm just gonna move this. I don't know if you can see the green triangle here is a rough approximation of the ramp. It's hard because with the
Yes.
construction and the fencing, we couldn't get a square photo to the front of the building. So there's a little bit of a optical illusion going on with the lines, but the measurements are clean. So between they had marked a notch on the side of the building for where the sidewalk's going to get poured to. So we measured the difference in height between that notch and the bottom of the step here and found that to be
Right.
2 feet 1/2 inches. Then the run from counting bricks up here is 26 feet 5 inches, and that's pretty much bang on in 12. So the ramp would go down the side and it would start at the edge of the building. Now, the really great thing about the slope of it is that it would miss the sill and it wouldn't extend past the edge of the building. So there'd be no, it wouldn't have to go around the corner or anything.
Is that going to be a door, Chris? Where there was a door, or do you know if that's going to be a door? Or is it just going to look like a door that doesn't open?
The way they've presented it, the way I understand it, is these are going to be 3 windows.
Oh, okay, that would be perfect.
Well, and
Yeah.
the thing is that we've had this conversation, and Ted, you brought it up with the minutes, that the real challenge with this rebuild is getting bricks that match.
Yeah,
With this ramp here, all of a sudden we've got all these bricks that are no longer
True.
going to be
true enough. Yeah,
visible. So could they repurpose these bricks to rebuild the lines here? I
Right.
know they're planning on repurposing these ones to rebuild part of it. But, maybe there's enough bricks here that if they're repurposed, we get to save the look of the windows and
Right.
get the accessibility feature.
Right.
So that, any questions on this one?
There's some vents under the window, and is the ramp going to block the vents? Is that going to cause a problem?
So that's a good question, Ted. From my look at these vents on Saturday, there's a lot of insulation coming out from under them. So it looks like they've been sealed up. And based on the way they've given us the concept drawings, it doesn't look like they're planning to put windows in here. And I know from the floor plan, this back section is going to be storage for the units above. People will have lockers down there. So as far as these are going to stay but like that plan, but it doesn't get sealed. Everybody, if anybody else has a question. Hearing none.
Katie? The ramp goes up like this. And what is going to be on the front if we were standing on the street looking at it's going to be of the ramp on the street side, is it just going to be filled in metal? Do you know
I
what I
don't know
mean?
that we're kind of at the concept plan of this where
Oh, I see. Okay.
these pictures have been sent to the building inspector, sent to Carl, and sent to Troy. And there was no red flags where they said, you know, because of this or that, this concept's off the table. So the
Okay.
next step would be for the Municipal Heritage Committee just to say, yes, we see there's a concept here, and we endorse the concept, and we believe that accessibility and heritage can come together. And then we could send that back to the developer
Right.
and say, you know, we've got a strong idea here, and maybe they've got a strong reason why it wouldn't work, but at least
Yep. Okay.
that hurdle. And once they came up with a design for it, then we have to give it an approval, make sure it works. And it's that.
Great.
So the last picture is just of the ramp at the post hotel, and aesthetically fits in really well. But it's a really strong symbol that shows, you know, this building is accessible, because with the two commercial units at the front of the hotel, to the back of the building, and just overall, you've got this special entrance that everybody's so excited for, to leave potentially 15% of the people out of it. If there's it seems like there's a strong concept there. So all I'm looking for tonight is feedback from the committee of whether there's any deal breakers or there's anything about this that would be not feasible or not supported. And if it seems okay, then we'll pass that on to Mary and Carl and reach out to Parkview.
Well, I think Chris, I think you mentioned at one of our meetings when we were talking about this, about someone had said about one of our colleagues had said, well, there'll be a back door that they can come in. And, you know, accessibility for me, just because I only had a short time when I couldn't get around with my broken ankle, but in that very short time, I know what it felt like to have to rely on being, you know, pushed or made plans, or, you know, you just didn't feel like you fit in. And that was for a very short time. And so I have nowhere to compare how people feel. But in my opinion, if we can transform our beautiful assets so that everyone feels they can go in the front door, it seems to me it's a success.
I agree, and I think that the portico is also going to kind of steal the show, and the ramp is not going to be jumping out at you as much because of the portico. So I absolutely agree that, you know, we want everyone to get in that front door.
Mm-hmm. I agree too. Chris, would you like us to present a motion?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful just to get it well documented in the minutes if people are comfortable with that. I don't want to push it though, because I didn't get the materials out before the meeting. So, but if there's consent or consensus from the committee, then did we lose someone?
Would you like to propose the motion then, Chris?
Sure. So, motion on the spot. So I would move that the Municipal Heritage Committee endorse the concept for a ramp at the Beckwith Street facade of the Rideau Hotel. I don't know, do we want to get into the more than that, or just keep it simple at this phase?
Yeah, just the wording should be, we, the Municipal Heritage Committee of the Town of Smiths Falls, rather than you. It has to be all.
Usually Nadine writes these for us.
And the committee believes it will not obscure or detract from the heritage attributes.
Yes, good. That's
Which was what?
important, Dorothy.
Those are Chris's words, not mine.
Yeah.
I think we lost Katie though,
Oh, I guess we did, yes.
just as a side, but
Oh, no,
What?
she's
It's
there.
coming back.
I'm back.
You're
Jeez,
back,
I lost
Katie?
my internet, sorry.
Mary,
Just
so,
press,
Mary,
press a video on the right-hand side of,
Okay, oh yeah.
there you go.
okay. Go ahead, Mary, please.
Sorry, Dorothy. So I know Chris put a motion on the floor, so I just want to kind of read aloud what
Please
will be
do.
reflected in the minutes, so that the Municipal Heritage Committee, having reviewed a concept of the accessible ramp for the Hotel Rito along Beckwith Street North, endorses the concept and trying to come up with the wording, but I liked your wording of, and agrees that an accessible ramp will not obstruct or detract from the heritage attributes of the building.
Will not obscure.
Will not, oh yeah, that's what I wrote. I'm
Obscure
just
or
having a hard
detract
time reading
from?
my own handwriting. Obscure or detract from the heritage attributes of the building. Does that
Of the
sound good?
property. I guess we
Yeah.
should say property, not building.
The property.
Yes.
Right.
So would somebody seconder for that motion then, please?
Okay.
Katie? Is there any more discussion or shall we vote? Okay, all in favor of the motion? Thank you. Which brings me to my item, which is our meeting format. And it was interesting while we were listening to Chris that we were having all those technical glitches going on. And I really would like, I'd like to ask the committee to make a recommendation to council that council endorses a return to in-person meetings as soon as possible.
Yay.
I'm not sure if I'm actually allowed to make a motion, but it could be a motion if somebody would like to move that. It's, I think that our work is hampered. And of course, we all understand the reason for this, but if we could meet in person following all the official protocols, I think that would help us out. And Ted, I think you were going to say something.
I was just saying, I strongly concur. Yeah.
And
Lorraine?
I was just going to add, the reason Tony's not here is he's doing things at the museum, but I know when I was chatting with him, when we were doing something else this week there, he and his organization, the board there, they sit in the breezeway where everyone's 2 meters easily apart and they're in the open air.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worked really well. We've done that since the beginning of the pandemic, and he's offered that to us, or for that matter, to anyone that wants to use it. But I think that's a good idea.
Chris?
thanks, Dorothy. Yeah, I agree with Lorraine, and also, for example, the Police Services Board is meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. at the arena in the upstairs meeting room.
Yeah, that's
with
another,
all
yeah.
the health units safety recommendations in place. The thing is when the town hall opened to the public, these protocols were in place. So it wouldn't create any extra work on the side of staff for coming up with a policy or a procedure of how to do it. It's the only side of it would be how to broadcast it. But that's been in place for some time now. So this is supposed to be on the agenda for the council meeting on the 28th, I believe, next Monday. And but so yeah, it's a great time for the committee to pass this resolution.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so Mary, please, yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that yes, I can confirm that I do also believe that this is coming to council on Monday. The clerk has advised me that committees are not to resume in-person meetings until that decision is made on a council level. However, if the MHC would like to make a motion, whether it's be a motioner and a seconder, or if you'd like to do a recorded vote so that the council can see each of the individual committee members vote to resume in-person meetings, I can ask Carrie to include that in her director's report on Monday.
Okay, that sounds good. So our motion then, that the committee strongly recommends to council that they endorse a return to in-person meetings. Should we just leave it at that? End of sentence? Would somebody move that then, please? Someone make the motion?
I'll move it.
And second.
I'll second it.
Katie,
Okay.
right, whatever.
Lorraine and Katie. So we'll have a recorded vote then. All in favor? Is that by us putting up our hands? Mary?
So if you want to do a recorded vote, you can ask each individual member to indicate yay or nay to the motion.
All right. Let's do that then. Let's start with Chris. Your
Yay.
vote, Chris? Jenny?
Yay.
Ted?
Yay.
Lorraine?
Yay.
Katie?
Yay.
And me, yay. So unanimously passed. Thank you. Next is correspondence. There was no correspondence.
Where are you going?
And, okay, so roundtable is the next item. The only, well, we don't normally list things under roundtable, but we can certainly debrief on that wonderful tour of the post office building. Mary?
Sorry, Dorothy. I actually added this item because I did not get to attend, and I believe
Oh, okay.
Dwyer also didn't get a chance to attend. And Katie, being a new member, unfortunately wasn't invited. So
I
I
know.
would love to hear about it because I didn't get to see it.
No, that's fine. I just thought that, no, we don't, like, it could be, we could talk about anything at this point. So who would like to start?
Well,
Oh, go
Let's
ahead, Jenny.
start with Jenny then. Go ahead, Jenny.
Just a huge congratulations to the team that worked on it. It's beautiful. It looks so great. It's a really, really beautiful piece of heritage in Smith Falls.
Ted, what would you like to?
It was beautiful to see. And there were a few adjustments made to make it work, and you'll never know. I mean, you know, a window appeared, but it's really gorgeous. And Bruce Linton has incredible passion for his project, and it was beautiful to see that. And yeah, it really, I was very impressed, and I look forward to seeing the downstairs wine tasting bar appear.
Oh,
as
me
well. I
too,
think
me too.
Yeah.
I was really impressed that Bruce Linton gave us the tour himself, and you could, his
Yes.
passion for the building just came through so loud and clear. And the interior is just beautifully done.
Mhm.
Are there any other things that people would like to bring up under roundtable? Chris?
Thanks, Dorothy. Bruce, like I was lucky he showed up to the Russell Street Marketplace the Sunday before. So even though I couldn't get off work that morning, I was lucky enough to snag a tour with him. And he's also, the heritage attributes are great, and he's got an electric car charger in the parking lot. So it's just a really cool quarter. Accessible ramp. And his wife's got great taste with all the stuff she's picked inside. With that though, there was an RFP for the old water treatment plant, and it's one of the old designated buildings that was on the list of bylaws we need to rewrite. And I'm wondering if the committee would have any interest in trying to arrange a tour of that space. I found the last time that we had documents coming from that building, it was really hard to know what to push to preserve and what to let go of, because without knowing the condition of the building and the state of the inside, We don't know. Another thing is that there's several windows broken out that haven't been filled in, and I'm worried that if we don't get them filled in before winter, it's just going to deteriorate that much faster. So a tour could also raise some awareness of that stuff, and then we could bring the results of our tour back to our next meeting if anybody else is interested.
Yes, that's an excellent idea.
I agree.
I haven't.
How do we go about doing that?
I don't
Well,
know.
we ask our clerk to arrange a tour for us.
I haven't been in there since taking a group of school children in there for a tour when it was still operational. That was a long time ago. That would be good.
I just remember paying my bill there. That's the last time I was.
So you guys would like me to try to see if I can arrange something for you guys to tour the building? I will see what I can come up with.
Okay.
And also, Mary, can we sort of send a formal thank you from the committee to Bruce Linton
Yes.
and whoever else it should go to for that tour that we so much enjoyed?
I can definitely do that, and I will draft something and circulate to everyone.
Thank you.
Mary, you might mention that we missed that, and if we could tag along the next time he gives a tour to anybody.
I will try to mention it. I'll mention it informally instead of the letter.
Okay.
Is there anything else anyone would like to mention? Lorraine?
Yeah, I've been looking at tree canopies and tree policy, and the town of Smith Falls has a tree policy draft. And a citizen in town, Craig Sinclair, reached out to me, and I think he's going to reach out to my colleagues and other people, but he's become quite an expert in trees and is on a mission to educate all of us and how we can save them and change our downtown so that the trees are going to be the right trees. But anyway, for almost 2 hours, he walked me around any number of trees. But why I'm mentioning it here is there are trees over 100 years old in our community, and he was showing them to me. And I was thinking to myself, most towns and cities designate those trees just so people are aware of their age and they protect them. It's not it's not anything else than that. And I can't see, I guess, other than protecting them from being chopped down if that would happen. But today it was just a really interesting walk, and it talked about putting the right kind of trees in the right place and having more trees in our downtown and around our town in a proper manner. And he talked to me about the kinds of trees you can put in narrow lots and just all kinds of interesting things. But how it affects this committee is, the ones that we looked at that are, you can see them. If you stand in the middle of our town, you look up, the ones you're going to see are all of these very old ones. And he maintains that they're still there because they were trimmed properly when they were young, like 10 years or 15 years old. And that means that the main shoot goes all the way up to the sky, and that's why they're so beautiful. I didn't know that. I mean, Larry and I trim ours just because it's in the way, but I've learned a lot. And I do think tree designations, I want to look them up, and I'll bring that back if people don't mind, and see if there are communities like ours that do designate trees. And that's it.
Wonderful.
I
Mary?
think that's a really wonderful idea. We're walking by 100-year-old trees and we don't even know it. And if we knew
I
about it,
know. I know.
it would give some people some goosebumps. Wow.
Yeah. Ted, we had an ice storm. I'm trying to think. I was still teaching I was the vice principal at Maynard when we had it. So it's got to be like maybe close to 20 years ago. But it took down a lot of maples on Brockville Street where you are, a lot of beautiful big trees. It just sort of split them, and we lost a lot of our canopy during that storm. But
That was 1998.
was it 1998? Okay.
And it is, yeah.
I moved here from Pointe Claire in Montreal, and if you ask the town of Pointe Claire to plant a tree on your front lawn, they will do that for you. And they will actually give you options of trees. And you can go look in their catalog and pick a tree and they'll plant it on your front lawn for you.
Great
And they're
idea.
probably all, yeah, the right kinds of trees. Yeah, that's what he was saying. He sent me a bunch of brochures to look at that do that.
Hmm.
So it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, Mary.
Sorry, Dorothy, I just kind of wanted to add an FYI. Lorraine and Chris might already know this because I have a hand in the tree canopy policy that Carl and I are working on it, Carl primarily. So one of the programs that we are requesting that council consider is a legacy tree program. So that's something that we're actually still kind of evaluating and trying to brush up a little bit of that policy before bringing it back to council.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. You know what? It's funny because in all my years, and Dorothy, I'm sure would agree, with knowing children, one of the most beneficial spiritually experiences that young kids can have is climbing a tree. And it changes their life. And we don't do that much anymore. You know, we don't, my tree in front of my house, my grandkids go up on every Sunday, but I don't know how many people get that chance. You know, it's just a tree's a great thing to have.
Hmm. Yes.
I'm so glad we have our committee growing, and we have such interesting people. Katie and Ted, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my goodness, thank you for having us.
Yes, I second that. Thank you so much for joining.
I'm happy to be here.
Me too.
Yeah.
Let's hope you keep on being happy to be here.
Well, I keep learning things. So, yeah.
Okay, I think we're down to the date of the next meeting. It is October 21st, I believe. Is that right, Mary?
The
That's
regular scheduled meeting is October 21st, and now Director Manhire has indicated that he is available, so we will be holding a meeting on that day. At time of the agenda, it was still to be determined, but yes, October 21st at 4:30 p.m.
4:30, okay.
Thank you. Would someone move to adjourn then, please? Thank you, Jenny. All in favor? Meeting adjourned.